Hi, I'm Rain,
And I'm Sophia.
and this is
BL TeaTime, where we talk about all things boys love and bring the good tea.
all right. We did it. All right, do you want to go first? Oh, today's episode, we're just going to be talking about mostly how we got into BL, Yaoi, and all that good stuff. Because I feel like you never, you never go looking for it; it finds you. So
Yeah.
everybody's story is very different and somehow still funny.
Yeah, because especially here in the States, it's kind of
Yeah,
like,
because I feel like if we were like in Japan or something, it'd be like, oh yeah, you
yeah,
kind of just know about
BL.
it.
But like here, it's like finding BL is just like a
Especially when it was
whoa.
like, I know we're a little bit older, so like when we first found it, you could barely even find manga in general and watch anime everywhere. So like when you found something, you were like, oh my
Oh,
god, I found
shoot.
that tea.
It wasn't like these days you get on certain websites and she's just there waiting for you.
She's waiting for you. She's here. She's proud. No, it wasn't like that.
It was not like that at all. But before we start talking about our stories, we're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves, but not too much, just a little bit. Um, so I'm going to go first. My name's Sophia, and I'm currently a junior slash senior because I'm a transfer in college. And I work at Olive Garden, and that's it.
Very
That's all.
fascinating. Very fascinating. And I'm Rain. I graduated in the fall of 2019, but because of what shall not be said in the world going on, I have not been able to really find a job in my career. So currently, just vibing.
We're all just vibing,
We're all
thanks
just
to
trying to vibe.
who shall not be named.
She shall not be named, but she is really inconveniencing me right now.
She's terrible. I hate her. All right. So we're just gonna get all into it. Get
All right, you
on
want to tell your
into it.
story first?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
So first and foremost, I knew what yaoi was before I really got into it.
Mm,
And the only reason I know that's because I used to have a YouTube channel. It's still up, but this video is no longer up. I had to delete it.
mm.
And I'll tell you why in a second. But I don't know why. I just looked up Yowie theme song and
Mm.
there used to be this like little jingle. I can't remember what it says.
Was it like an opening to an OVA or
No,
just
ma'am. It was some
okay?
random bitch probably sitting in her basement. And it was the most monotone thing I've ever heard. Let's see. It was something like, please stay away.
So it was in English.
It was in English, yes. It wasn't
Okay.
Japanese or anything because that would have been even more devastating on my part. But it was something about like how we're like fuhoshis and like like if you're not a fuhoshi, your eyes are gonna bleed because it's BL, it's yaoi, it's like
Oh my god.
guys doing the dirty.
Cover your eyes, children.
It was so bad, and I remember the cover art I used for it. I like looked up what is it? I looked up yaoi pictures, but nothing bad popped up, or at
Yeah,
least
like
not
it was.
the first bar.
It used to be tame.
It was
Like
really
when you would
tame.
search that, I guess because Google was like, "Do you really know what you're trying to look
Yeah,
for?" Here's like the.
the mellow because it was like these two cat guys eating a strawberry, like a strawberry together, and that
Mm,
was my cover picture for the song. And then I recorded it on what's not Adobe, but the other,
garage band.
not GarageBand because I wasn't around at that time. It was like
Man, that was a long time ago.
Audacity, Audacity.
I don't
It
recall.
started
That
with an
sounds
A. It
familiar. I
started
don't
with an
know.
A, and that used to be like the recording thing because I used to use
Mm-hmm.
it to make like mail covers of songs and stuff. So I recorded on that and I just slapped that thing on YouTube
That's
and
beautiful.
it stayed up for a while.
Did you get any views? Any comments?
As far as I can remember, I'm pretty sure I got like one or two comments. a few views, but nothing like extraordinary. I did not blow up to some
Damn. What if that was
celebrity.
like your moment, your 15 minutes of
I
fame? Oh
would
my
be
god.
devastated at the
She's the Yowie girl.
yeah, we but no, and I was so young too. Like I think I was like barely in middle school when I did it. Because
Mm,
I know I didn't have a computer when I was in elementary school. So I had to be in like middle school when I made it. But the reason why I had to take it down, and one of the more devastating things about this is that I had uploaded another YouTube video to that channel where I talked about like going to my first anime con, and that one did get like 1,000 views, and to me that was like wow,
that
like
is honestly.
that's a lot for me. Um, and I know it stayed up for a while because I didn't make that first convention story until like I was a freshman in high school. So, like, 3 years, this little
This
video stayed up.
that's just sitting
I
there.
don't know how or what possessed me. I don't know if I said it in passing. I can't remember if I was just showing my brother and sister the YouTube channel to show them some dumb sim video that I made. They found my YouTube channel.
Oof.
When we had all these people over, like my mom's best friends, this guy that they were trying to get me to talk to,
Mm.
and my brother had the nerve to pull up the Yaoi video of me
Oof. On
singing.
your big ass TV in the living room?
Not on the big no. We
Oh.
didn't have a Chromecast yet. We didn't have a Chromecast yet.
I was
We
about
didn't
to
have a
say, God
casting.
damn.
I would have cried myself to sleep. No, he was trying to show it on his iPod or something. It was like not an iPod, it was an iPod, like the touchscreen ones.
Yeah, I had one.
And he tried to show them on that, and I think I grabbed it and I just clicked out of it, and I instantly went to my YouTube channel and
And
I
deleted it.
deleted it. But
Damn.
at the same time, I deleted that convention story video.
Oh.
And I don't know how. I don't know how I deleted that,
Did you
but
just delete the whole channel?
I wish I should have. No, I don't. It's still up. But yeah, that was like me singing about yaoi before I really got into yaoi.
Mm.
Now how I got into yaoi and how I started like trying to look more into it was because of Free when it first came out.
Yes.
And I wasn't watching it in that sense. Like I was like, ooh, boys love. I was just watching it and I was like, these are very pretty men. And then the Makoto and Haru scene happened
Uh-huh.
when he was trying to give Makoto CPR. And in my little heart, I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, are they gonna kiss? I was getting excited, and I've never been excited like
Because
that before.
that show really felt like it was supposed to be a yaoi.
It
Which I think it was supposed to be.
the thing is, Free came from like an ad. It was an ad before it
Yeah,
was
to
an
show off
anime.
the water.
Exactly.
To show off their water
So
animation.
they just had the audacity to make it like that. It's probably I don't want to say it's like queer baiting or anything. It's fan service.
It
It's
is.
fan service is
Because
what
they
it
knew what they were
is.
doing. They were like,
Yes.
oh, these characters mean
Yes.
nothing. It's a commercial. Let's just put them together. And then
And
everybody was like,
to this day, they're still here.
to
But
this
yes,
day, they're still my number one ships. I'm just
but
like, the ships in that show was perfect.
they the only thing is like the whole like at the time I was kind of like open to anything. So it was like Rinharu, Makuharu. I was fine with either one. So that scene with Makoto and Haru was already kind of getting me excited. Like, oh wow, Tuba is scandalous. But then the scene where that was the last episode where Rin hugs Haru after the race and he was crying. I don't know what happened. It was like the awakening. I started I don't want to say I was like seething, but I was fangirling. I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And my parents thought I was crazy because I was watching it in my living room because that's where our computer was. And I was freaking out over it. Like I couldn't keep watching it because I was freaking out over that one scene. So I like shut it off and I like ran to my room and I was like,
Not
"Oh
today.
my
I have to do this in private. I
god!"
have to
I
watch
had to
this
fangirl
in a quiet place.
and the funniest thing, I never finished the episode.
Oh wow!
I wanted to
I hope you finished
preserve
it by
it.
now.
Yeah. I definitely have, but I wanted to preserve that moment. And yeah, and then that was my awakening, I guess.
The awakening. But like, when did you like start searching for specifically more boys love or anything that had
Well,
any kind of yaoi or
thanks to Free,
whatever?
I started reading fan fiction
Oh,
with the couples, and then I think I started running into DJs or
dojins.
doujinshis, yeah.
Sorry for
started
saying
running
it
into
wrong. I
them.
think it's Dojin.
Yeah, we can't pronounce nothing.
If we butcher any names or Japanese words, we're sorry.
We are incredibly sorry. But I started running into those with Makoto and Haru, and I just thought they were so beautiful. And I wanted more, but at the time, I wasn't used to smut. I wasn't used to anything dirty. I didn't go out of my way to look for things dirty. So anytime like a bad scene would come, I'd skip over it.
Oh, wow.
Just to get back to the normalness of it.
Yes, the non-smut, the non.
And that was in high school. And it took me maybe until like after I graduated high school to ever read smut and like be okay with smut. So imagine me trying to read yaoi
but skip over the smut.
but skip over smut.
So what is it, Shonen now?
And I wish I knew what that was at the time. At the time, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to like really look for things. So all through high school, my saving grace was fan fiction.
I love that. I love that. I can't even like. I want to say it's been so long. So like, I want to say I found it back in 8th grade because I remember it was like right after we moved, which I moved in 8th grade, and I remember being in the new house, and I'm pretty sure I just happened to cross over an OVA on YouTube. That was till this day is probably one of my favorite ones to read, which is The Tyrant Who Fell in Love. I don't even know how to explain. Like, I promise you, my YouTube was nothing but like at the time couldn't be anything other than like skits, music, and like covers, and like maybe like Smosh videos. So for me to be recommended randomly a Japanese OVA, because like it kind of like right where I got into anime as well. So I think I went into it thinking it was like a mature anime or something. I don't even know what it was titled. And then I watched that OVA, and to be fair, it is a little problematic, but I was like, what is there like, because OVAs, there's only like there was only 2 episodes of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, there has to be more to this story. Like, what's going on here? Do they like, because like Japanese stuff, they'll stop a story and like leave you
hanging for the rest of your life.
for the rest of your life. So like I was like looking up like because I was like looking up the name. I was trying to figure out if there was more of specifically this story. And then like I finally found the actual story. And I think at the time there was like 6 volumes. Because right now it's at like 13. Because I've still been reading this. This is still one of my favorite stories to read. Some of it's nostalgia. It's not like the greatest story in the world, but I still 100% love it. But yeah, I found that, and then I just thought that was its own little gay story. There was no like genre to this. There was no like anything else. So I think I kind of let it slip my mind or whatever. And back to Free. I think Free, I was trying to see if Free had a manga. And while I was looking for the manga, I think I came over a dojin of them. And I was like, because it was a really good story.
They're really good. Like,
there's some really good ones out there. I was
good.
like, oh my, because I think it was also like, again, I didn't really know that dojins were not the from the author. That was not the story. So in my head, that was like, that was going to be season 2. Like that was season 1 was great, but season 2 is about to be spicy.
Steamy.
Spicy. Like it was like, I think it was the one they're looking for like more swim trunks. And then they're trying it on, and then it gets hot and steamy in the dressing room.
Oh my!
And I was like, when did that didn't happen in season 1? So is that anyway?
Season 2.
So if it's a little blurry, like I said, we're a bit older.
Yeah, you've graduated from college. I'm in my like last year of college.
Like I said, I got into it like what, end of middle school, early high school.
Exactly, which is around the same time.
And I'm a grown ass woman now, so. But yeah, so from my memory, I think from finding that dojin, I found other ones, and then I realized that there was a name for it, which was yaoi.
Mhm.
And then I was able to like look up yaoi, which still at the time was not the easiest thing to do.
No.
Like you had to like know the sites.
You had to know the sites. You
You had to
had
get around the
to
sites. You had to know like what specifically what you were looking for. Because even if you found the sites, a lot of the time yaoi was not a tag.
no. And that's so weird to me because even, like, I remember when I would try to actively look for some,
Hmm.
you'd go on, like, the regular manga sites, cross your
Yeah,
fingers, hope
and
that it's
hope that
somewhere there.
at least one
Never.
story. Because
Never.
like now you go to like what is it, Lezen and like all these other reading sites and whatnot, and there's a yaoi tag or a BL
BL
tag or
tag.
something
It's
boys
mainly
love.
that story.
But back then it was like you go to
Never.
a main manga or webtoon or whatever to look it up, there was no tag.
No. And that's
So
so weird. It's so
I
weird.
would like Google yaoi and it would always take you to like Yahoo Answers or like some kind of form.
I'm
And
sick.
I would just like look up, oh, like the best yaois or whatever. And somebody would like put down their top 10. And
Mhm.
then I would go searching for those and see if they were any good.
That is okay. Because, like, going back to how, because I remember I used to go through, like, before I actually watched my first, like, official yaoi,
Hmm.
because I hadn't watched anything at this point. I used to, like, look up, like, what is it?
Oh,
Compilation?
compilations.
Or,
Yeah.
like, AMVs or, like, yaoi kisses and stuff like that. And I was just like, I'm sure I think what was really softening me is, like, I knew that as soon as I watched it, and if I liked it, I knew it was over. Like, I wasn't gonna ever drop the genre.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it was like, I was like, oh, I'll probably grow out of this. And here I am to this day. Like I
It's
read like
so
3 stories this morning.
it's so it there's,
Cause
like
it's
there's a
there's so much
science to it.
content
There's
now.
an understanding to it why.
They know what we want. There's a science.
They know.
And then how easy it is to find now. It's
Now it's like
ridiculous. It's
it's
so easy.
it's
And I
harder
have
not to
and
find
I have
it.
grown folks money. So even if I go to those sites that you have to pay for, I got grown folks money. I can actually pay for
I
it.
can pay for
Because
it, support the artist.
Excuse me, God forbid I had to go ask my mother and be like,
Can I
can I put
never.
your credit card into this
We were broke.
website?
We
So
were broke. Could not.
the thing is, if I had to explain what it was for,
Oh
I
no.
couldn't do it. Cause like my mom knew, um, in general, like whenever there was like any kind of LGBT representation in any kind of media, I was
Mhm.
over it. I loved anything that had anything with mind you, everybody who's watching, we are part of the LGBT. We're not like trying to like, I don't know, just creep on the gays or
Yeah,
anything.
no,
Um,
definitely.
so like I was always happy because it was like around the time where I was like, I like girls, but I
Mm.
was always really happy to just see any kind of LGBT plus representation in any kind of media.
Yeah.
So, like, cause what's the shows? Like, I would like go to Netflix and look up the LGBT movie tag
Mhm.
that was there, or like gay movies, lesbian movies, like whatever. If I was like on Tumblr, and
Oh my goodness.
Tumblr told you quick once there was some
Tumblr
gays in something.
had your back.
They were
That
like,
was
"Oh, there was a gay kiss in this. Y'all want to go watch it? You got to
was
watch like 7 seasons
if
just
you
to see this
wanna know
one gay
how old
kiss."
we are, just us saying Tumblr was a site that we actively used.
Tumblr was a reliable source for gay media.
That
It
should
really
say enough.
was. Which Tumblr also helped me find most of the stories I wanted to read because it would be like
Literally.
if you followed the tags of specific like artists or
Mhm.
authors of certain stories, they would they would get me so quick. I would be like, "Yes, ma'am." They would put a little link at the bottom.
You're like, "Thank you."
Like when I was reading the one I was talking about, Tyrant Who Fell in Love, it wasn't
Mhm.
that easy to find, but Tumblr had my back. Anytime there was an update, Tumblr let me know.
Even to this day, didn't I sent you a link to something that was on a Tumblr. I could have sworn.
I'm pretty sure I remember
Like a
that because
movie.
I
And I
was
was
like,
like,
Tumblr?
Tumblr's still she's still here. She's still here.
She's
She's
still here.
popping up.
She's still popping. She's just not. what she used to be.
Yeah.
The way it's evolved is really wild because, like, telling my story, I'm pretty sure some of our listeners are like much younger than us.
And they're
Uh,
like, "That's crazy." No, like,
I'm
I
hoping
used to
that
get
you're
on
still
TikTok.
18 plus, but still younger by a little bit. Things changed quickly in a few years because by the time I was in by the time I was in college, it was already a little bit easier to find, and
Oh, yes.
they would start
Absolutely.
tagging it as yaoi, so you
And
could
then
actually find it.
hit the Yowie tag, and then you had all these other
All these
recommendations. To
options, and then
me, I couldn't
there
fathom it.
was like an app called. I think I still have it. I just never really open it nowadays.
Mhm.
It was like Storm something.
Manga Storm?
Manga Storm. Thank you. It was called Manga Storm. And when I found that app and you could save your stories,
Read it offline.
read it offline, and like it had, if you went to the right website, you could download it. And the website I would always, I think it was Manga Here, had the tag. So I
Mhm.
always went to Manga Here because it had the tag Yaoi. So I could go to where I was looking for.
It's weird how many options there are now too, because before it was like the page was like 1 out of 5. Now if you just put in Yaoi on certain sites, it's like 1 out of 100, and you're
One of
like,
100, one of 1,000. Which word do you want? And then you have tags within tags. So you're looking for masculine couple. Here you go. You're looking for office work play. Here you go. You're looking
for like childhood friend stories,
here
they
you
got
go.
you.
You're looking for college romance. Here you go.
Oh,
I love that. Cause
oh
like
my
some of the most toxic, because now that you can like look at what you want, because I love a good office romance. I love a good college romance, or like, childhood friends growing up together and then they fall in love or something like that. To be able to just go straight to that is beautiful.
and you're not like reading through the story and then realizing this is not what I
That this
wanted.
is trash.
Oh my
And
god, those were the saddest days.
they were, because like, I don't know. And also I think it's easier to like skim through the toxic stuff that you know you're not about.
No.
Cause like certain tags, I'm like, cause like for me, I like tragedy to an extent, but most of the time it hurts my little heart.
See, that's different for me because I tell her all the time, I actively look through the tragedy tag. That
And
is my thing. I look
oh,
tragedy, angst, sad, death. Like I will go look for it because I don't know.
and like,
I'm more
oh,
involved in that type of world.
yeah, but you're like, you like have feelings. I'm kidding. No, but like when I find it, I think because I think one of the older stories I read, um, I got so into it and the story was really good. And then it And then it who knew? Like, now I looked it up recently. Of course, there's the tag tragedy on there.
You're like,
Back then,
oh,
there was nothing. And then,
oh,
like,
you read things blindly.
you
You
read
had
it
no
blindly
knowledge of what
that it was tragedy. I think that's why I stay away from, like, sometimes I click it. I'm just like, you know what? I'm a big girl. I can handle it today.
weep,
But if you throw it at
weep.
me, I can't. I can't because, like I was saying, that story, such a good story. They finally get together. What happens at the last chapter?
He
He
walks
got hit by
across
a
the street.
car. Yes, he crossed across. He walked across the street. He got hit by a truck because that's their
It is a
favorite
trope.
tragedy
That is a
ending.
trope.
He was
If
just,
you're reading a yaoi,
and they're crossing the
they're
street.
crossing the street.
They're about to get hit by a
Say your
truck.
goodbyes. Stop reading because there's nothing else that will happen
They're
there.
not coming
There's a
back from that
specific
one.
reason why they focus on the street lights and the crosswalk.
That should be a tag itself. Um,
The
Random
crosswalk,
the crosswalk. Death by crosswalk.
the street light.
Who knew? Or something just flows into the street for some reason. Like, oh, I
Oh
gotta
my
go get
god.
that, but look, no, not look both ways on a
Oh my god.
on a busy intersection. Let me just run
Mhm.
into the street.
I know you
It's fine.
said the first yaoi that you watched was what was it? Tyrant.
The tyrant who fell in love.
Okay, because mine was like a full blown series or season,
Mm.
and that was don't be surprised. Junjo Romantica was the first
Oh
yaoi that I ever
wow!
watched.
I
Not
never saw that
basic,
coming.
not different. No, guys. I'm
That was like
built
that's
different.
like everybody's first except for mine, because I don't know why. I just never wanted to watch it nor
I
read it.
mean, there's a
I
lot
think
of
I read
things.
it and didn't like it that much, and that's
See,
why I never watched
I
it.
didn't read it, I only watched it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I liked, like, the different couple aspects, and like I said, it was, like, the first one I watched, and I was watching it in
Mhm.
a sense of, like, "Let's see if I actually like this genre or not," and then I watched it, and when I fell in love with it, in the back of my mind, I was like, "Oh, here we go.
This is
Here
going to
we
be
go."
this is going to be
Because
with me for the rest of my life. This
after
is
that, I watched anything that I could get my hands on, which at the time was not a lot. Like, I would watch that one, and I watched the other one that's made by the same person, like Sekai Hizukoi, and then I think I watched this OVA
Mhm.
called Tightrope, and, like, at the time,
I
that's
think I
all
remember
I had.
Tightrope. I
Yes.
watched, like, a bunch of, like, cause The Tyra Who Fell in Love, it's not super old, but it's an older
Mhm.
one. It's, like, early 2000s. I guess newer than a lot of the other ones, but then I would just look it up because I thought this was just, like, what's the best way to say it? Like, I didn't realize that this again, I didn't realize that it was a tag, it was, like, yaoi, like, this was what it is.
Yeah.
So, I would just look up, like, gay animes. And so, like, a lot of them came from, like, the 90s. So, like, I
Oh,
watched, like, a lot of, like,
and it's
90s old yaois,
crazy
which are,
because
like,
I've watched some of those.
yeah. I think we
Um,
watched a few together because I was, like, nostalgic. I
we
was like
watched a few together, and then I know I saw a couple because I was just you'll go through phases, but it wasn't back then, it was, like, recently now, like, that I can easily find it. Because back then, if I couldn't find it,
yeah.
there was only so much I was gonna do before I was like, "Alright, I guess I wasn't meant to see this." But it was after watching Ginger Romantica that it just off I went into this realm, and like I said, fan fiction got me through, um,
I guess I was
high
just never
school.
I was never a fan of, like, fan fiction. I if there's no pictures, I know it sounds childish, but I really like manga because I really like to see. I'm not a
Mhm.
big, like, reader in a sense of just page on text,
See, and I'm like
text on page.
exactly, because
Like,
I used
I
to
yeah. Go ahead, I'm
hmm?
sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
Because I was gonna say I used to read books, and I have, like, an overactive imagination, like, I'm able to, like,
Mm,
envision things. So from, like, reading books, I used to envision the characters, so then once I started reading fan fiction and, like, the thing
mhm,
that they use characters that you've already seen before, for me, it was just so easy to, like, play the scenes out in my mind because of my imagination at the time,
mm.
that, like, fan fiction
And then
was
you could
like
keep it more wholesome, like you
oh,
liked
yeah, I was
it.
like, "That didn't happen, no." I'd
That's not how
skip
that
through, I was like and then
skip
they
right
went to
over it.
bed. "Ooh."
Do you wanna come upstairs for some
Nope.
coffee? Oh, nope, 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 nope,
Next
nope. Wakes
morning
up the next morning. Okay, here we go.
no, okay, so this is what happened. They went to
Okay.
sleep.
They went to bed.
Words on
Oh,
text.
I've just never been like, even as a child, I just never was into books without pictures.
Mhm,
I was always really big into, uh, television, movies. Like, you can
mhm.
ask me a movie, I've probably seen it. TV show, I've probably seen it. If you ask me about a book, I've read, like, maybe 3 books fully in my whole life. And I'm
Persistent.
23, and I'm not about books. But I did get really into manga. So I really enjoyed reading manga because I have read like straight stories. I've read like
Mhm.
Naruto. I've read
Exactly,
a few
yeah.
other stories that I
Because
can't
like,
think
the
of right
anime
now.
obsession has been here forever.
Oh yeah, once I got
Since
into
a
anime,
child. Since it came on TV, I was obsessed with anime
because like
and, like, manga.
I love the art. I like actually seeing
Was it
Yes,
animation?
when I got into manga, I really liked manga because of the pictures, and then I got really into anime because that was just like a whole nother genre. And then, like I said, I love anything gay or LGBT related, and I was just like, oh,
It
so
all
we're just
just
putting
came
all of my
together.
favorite things together into one story. I love that.
It's a beautiful thing.
Mhm,
Once you get
mhm.
into it, because for me, it was like it had to be a slow build because for me anyways, like I've never seen anything wrong with like the LGBTQ. I used to
Exactly.
be like it used to just be like I've never had a judgmental bone in my body. And it wasn't until middle school that I was dang, like anyone you want. I've never set a preference for myself once I started dating. It's kind of like
Exactly.
I've always been that person like who you like, you know?
And I also it's just like it's such like there's so many straight stories. Like don't get me wrong, like I love The Notebook, but how many times have you seen the couple from The Notebook? Like to see something different and something a little closer to what you like
Mhm.
and like more of like because like the energy of your gay friends and your straight friends, two different
Completely different.
energies, two different. When you hang out with your straight friends and when you hang out with your gay
Hey
friends,
friends.
it's like it's the same but with glitter. It's just better somehow.
Mhm.
I don't know, but it's like that when I read yaoi. It's just like a little bit better than the straight stories I read. Don't get me
Yes.
wrong, I have read some really good straight stories.
That is
A
facts.
girl had me read one because she found out. I think she caught me reading yaoi in high school. I wasn't the most.
Beautiful.
I don't care what you see me doing most of
Mhm.
the time. I don't like read it openly at church or anything. But if I'm sitting in the library, like when I was sitting, like I would go to the library a lot. Um, I would like skip class and just go to the library. I would just tell my teacher I'm going to the library, and I was a really good student, and I was passing all my classes, so they never really cared. So I would just go to the library. So I would just be like, I'm sitting here, I'm bored, I'm gonna read Yowie. Like,
Mhm.
if you come up behind me and you see it, that's your problem. Why
Yeah, it's
you
like,
why you
why are
looking
you
at
in my
my phone?
business?
And it's not like I'm like if we because it was on my iPod because it
Mhm.
was I'm that old, which is like God, not even like compared to the phone,
Oh,
like
half the size
was like this
me. You're
size.
like
So like I'm pretty sure that's why I have bad eyesight now.
yeah,
Like
honestly.
squinting at that tiny
Because
screen.
that's how I used to be when I used to watch yaoi on YouTube on my I'm almost positive it had to been my brother's iPod that I got, and I
Hmm.
would like cover myself and watch it this close to myself and
I
watch it
was the
all
only
night.
child, so like once I went to my room, I was just like, "This is
No,
me
the sad thing
time."
is like my sister used to sleep right next to me because we used to share a bed, and it was just like God, I rue the day that she looks over and she's like, "What are you watching?" And we be like,
Yeah, I was always cautious around like, cause like I had to go to my dad's on the weekends, and he didn't I he did not know how to entertain me whatsoever. So I would just like go to the living room because I didn't have a room there. And I would just be on the couch. He'd be like, "Oh, you always on that phone. Why don't you pick up a book?" And I'd be like, "I am reading.
"Look."
Look." But don't look. But like, because he swore up and down I never read anything. And I was like, I'm reading.
I read all the time.
I'm just not reading what I know you want me to be reading.
Exactly.
Not reading any scholarly letters or anything. So, what are some of your favorite stories?
My favorite stories. So like presently, and I guess these have been like my favorites for a while. I guess my number one would be BL Motel, which is a webtoon or like a manhwa. Excuse me if I
Mhm.
say that
Oh, we
wrong.
haven't even talked about how we got into those because
Oh, madam.
those opened up a whole nother door.
We were in a whole nother realm when we found out about manhwas. But currently, and I say BL Motel is my favorite because I've gone back and I've reread it like a thousand
Hmm.
times. I buy the raws and I buy the English version because they're not like updating at the same time, so I'm impatient. I
Hmm.
love the story. I love it so much. If I had to say like an anime one,
Is it Yuri on Ice?
if Yuri on Ice is a yaoi, yas, because I like it so much. I mean,
There's just so many not animated, so it's okay.
exactly, it's hard. I guess knowing Yuri on Ice isn't a yaoi or technically a BL, it is one of my favorite animes that has an LGBTQ couple as like the main story, but it's not based around their story, but it's still beautiful. And I've rewatched Yuri on Ice like 4 or 5 times. I love that show. And then I'm gonna throw in Thai BL.
Oh
You
yes, we
know
forgot about.
exactly.
Oh, we should talk about how we found Thai BLs because that's a whole other story. That's a whole other.
There's so
That's
many
another
different
podcast.
versions. There's
That's another
so many
podcast.
different versions. But if I had to say my favorite Thai BL and like one of my favorite shows that are BLs, Until We Meet Again.
Oh yes,
I've never seen anything more beautiful,
we're getting
well
matching
made.
tattoos of that show. If that shows how much we love it.
We love that show.
Just talk about production, story, acting.
Whoever wrote that story, like, thank you so much for sharing it with us and not
s-
keeping it to yourself.
Great.
Like when my friend was describing it, and not Rain, but our friend Morgan was describing it to us, I instantly loved the story because it's everything that I like: tragedy, sad, but romance. Because it was sad, very sad, but also very
It is,
sweet.
but it's also very happy at the same
It
time. So that's
is.
why the tragedy is okay with me because I'm like, okay, it starts off really fucking harsh, but that it's nothing but happiness.
Happiness, occasional sadness because of certain events.
Mostly flashbacks.
So if I had to like recommend you anything, and as in like my favorite, it'd be like BL Motel, Yuri on Ice, but just know that Yuri on Ice isn't a yaoi or BL, but it has an LGBTQ couple. And then Until We Meet Again. Those are like my favorite things that are
Yeah,
like.
I feel like Yuri on Ice is kind of like who. It depends on who's talking to you about it, because some people are like, no, it wasn't, and then other people are just like, that was gay as fuck. Like, the gayest thing I ever saw. And if you're talking to me, it's gay. It's BO. It's yaoi. I don't care.
It's a boy love story. I mean, you
It
have
is.
two guys that meet
He was
each
like,
other.
especially when he's like, my friends are getting married, and
everyone was fine with it. This is a beautiful thing. Which ones are yours?
Some of my favorites. Like I said, I still have nostalgia for. I will probably always say that The Tyrant Who Fell in Love is one of my favorites. In my heart, it's 10 out of 10. Realistically, I know it's not the greatest story ever. It has its problematic moments and whatnot, but overall, it's just I love it so much, and I've read it so many times. I own I think 3 physical copies of it.
Oh wow.
And the author even said, like, the story's done. Whatever she writes now is just because she felt like writing. Like, and that's really great. That's why within the last few years we've only got like a little bit, because it's just like this, like, it's finished. But yeah, that's probably always going to be one of my favorites. More recently, I would have to say BJ Alex. I've reread that one a few times.
I've only reread it once since reading it for the first time, but
I've reread it
it's
like
normally
3
to
or 4.
preserve the story, because I like to go back and being like, oh wow, this happened. Like I'd like to forget, because I like to like
Oh yeah, I
relive.
always give my time like some time to, except for like the first one I just mentioned. I'll just be in the mood and just be like, I'm gonna reread volume 7, chapter 8. Like I can probably tell you what happens in that. Like I've read it so many times. But BJ Alex, it was just like a really good like story, and I especially love. Oh, I guess we'll put spoilers in the beginning, but I don't know. I love the like. I don't know. It's just a well written story, and yeah, it's just a good story overall. I'm trying to think of any others that I've read.
Well, I know the ones that we both keep up with because we read it on my Lesson account is Love is an Illusion.
Love is an Illusion is really good. Really, really good. I haven't reread it yet, but it's probably because it's not finished. Maybe when it finishes, I'll probably go all the way back.
I don't think I could go back, because the characters that they are now are nothing. Nothing like the characters they were before.
I mean, that's kind of like BJ Alex, though.
I mean, but it's like I could still see BJ Alex. I could still see Alex from when he was stick in
Bad
the
boy.
mud, a bad boy,
Bad
yeah,
boy.
little emotional boy to who he is now. But because it was like a nice change, I guess.
Mhm.
And I guess we could say the same for like Haesung and Dojin. Like, but when I look back on them, I'm like, who are you
Who
people?
who are
Anything
you?
anything pre-Buell,
Oh
I've
yeah,
okay.
it's almost like that didn't happen.
It's like that none of it happened. Buell sold the story.
He
I
did.
feel like I've reread from where Haesung got pregnant
Mhm.
to where it was updated at the time. But anything before that, I can't because I don't know who those people are. Like it was just so different. It's weird.
Yeah, and I have another story. I only ever see it with the Japanese name, and I don't know it whatsoever. But it's the one where it's another Omega verse. It's
Hmm.
a actual yaoi. It's the Japanese one. It's a Japanese one. Um, where he has a daughter, and then he finds his pair, and then they have a son, and then they find the dad of the daughter, and the new boyfriend like beats him up because he did him dirty. He
Oh
did him
wow.
so dirty. He knocked his ass out and got him fired and got his friends. And then the daughter was like, "You're my dad," and I was just like, "Oh my god!" But yeah, that's a good wholesome story. I'll put it in the description because I really can't remember the name of that story. I only ever seen it. If if I don't see the English name of it, I just won't know the name of it because I'm a either butcher the hell out of it trying to say Japanese, or I'm just not going to remember it.
Exactly.
But
I
if
don't
you
want to
show me
butcher it.
like the cover of it, I'll be like, "That's it.
That's
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 it.
who she
I've
is.
seen it.
That's
I've read it." And
it's
out of animes, like I said, there's so little actual gay animes that
hmm It's like you have like a list of like obviously like
yeah.
we've seen like I've
Like we
seen
watched
Love
Given.
Stage,
Given was
Given,
really good.
um, Love Stage. Uh,
I like reading Love Stage more than I liked watching it.
I liked watching it. I can't even read it because I can't ever find it.
It's so long though. Like it's a long story.
Yes, there's that. It's this thing where it's like I don't want to say it because I don't want to butcher the name, but like Hita Hite
We'll
I
put it
can't
in the des-
something hero.
they'll put the name somewhere on the
You'll
screen.
know what I'm talking about if I show you. It's like the blonde-haired guy, black-haired guy, and then the side couple is orange-haired guy, brown-haired guy. They're in school. It's
It sounds so familiar.
um
Would I look it up later? Should I look it up now? Do you want to look it up?
um oh somebody that was my what is it? My background is Yacheri Bitch Club.
Oh yes, amen. Love that one.
How could we
Been
forget her?
I was thinking of it, but I was like, should I say it? But like that's probably one of my favorites just because I've read it a bunch of times, and then to finally actually see it, it was really lit.
It's so wild. It's sick. This is our
And it's
opinion,
crazy.
and we do know that a lot of people don't like it, but we like it.
I'm not as scared to say it. Like if you have beef with it, you have beef with it.
It's understandable. I see where you're coming from, but you also have to understand that it was made to make fun of yaoi tropes. And I think people just don't see that.
And I feel like some people just want to say it's problematic because it's gay. Because if you look at any other hentai itself is so problematic. There's so many that I can think of right now where I'm just like, oh my god, is that
Y'all watch
legal?
that?
Oh my god, just because it's straight, y'all think this is better? Okay.
Right. It's Hitori Hime My Hero. Eh, I'm so sorry. This one.
Oh, that one. Once I see it, I know it. But if you tell me
Exactly.
the name of it,
I'm
especially the
not blank
Japanese name
out.
of it, I'm be like, uh-huh.
It's the
Yep.
same thing. I don't know. I only know partial like of the English one. It was on Crunchyroll. Something to get a hug from the second most handsomest guy or
Oh, and then I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but it made me think of Is it I'm like being harassed by the most handsome man in
That
Japan?
I think that is it. That's the one I'm talking about.
It's like something like that. Yeah, I've watched that one too. It was pretty good. It wasn't like the
Mhm.
greatest thing, but I
No.
liked it.
And then
I think because like there is so little that like
there's
I'll
so
give
little
things a
listen.
slide because I'm just like because especially because I know they're not getting the budget of like Naruto, Demon Slayer. I know they're not getting that kind of budget.
No.
So if you can just produce
And
an
it looks
anime and it
okay.
looks like an anime, because like some of those older 90s ones or like even early 2000s,
You're just kinda like
they were like, okay, draw him walking. And it's like one frame is like leg up, and then the next frame is like leg over here, trying to like walk. And you're just like,
Oh my gosh.
okay, they had $3 for the budget. That's okay. They worked with it. And
They went
they
with
did a
it.
great job.
'Cause I know with the one that we just mentioned, the harassed by the most handsome guy in Japan, like, this is, like, the post me where, like, smut is, like
Hmm.
I find it sometimes necessary for the story. Like, I need it in the story now. So, the censorship in it pisses me off because it's like they don't censor it normally, they just cut the whole scene
Oh yeah,
out,
they
and then
just cut
it's
it all
like,
out.
what is why are we
What
all of a
happened?
sudden in
And they don't
the
even cut it
thing?
out smoothly, like, "Oh, let's, like, pan
No.
left," or let's just, like
There's no
look at the
way.
moon for a second, but we hear something. It's like, no, like, he kisses his lip, and
No.
it's just, like, black,
Black,
and it
or or it's just, like, half of them are missing, and it's or, like, Love Stage where it would, like, turn them into clouds, and I'd just be sitting there like, "Sir, please,
Exactly.
you know what this is here for."
Yeah, and then when it comes to, Thai dramas, I've watched a lot in my day, but one of my favorites that I always come back to, I've watched it a few times, is it has 2 names. And
Mhm,
one, it's either you either see it under heroin or you see it like under addiction. I've seen it more as addiction, I
mhm.
think. I want to say it's a Chinese. Actually, I take that back. It's a Chinese one. And I love that story, but because of China, they were like, you don't get season 2.
Oh my god.
They filmed it. They have season 2, but China was like, no. And then even those actors, China was like, y'all can never work together again. And I follow both of them on Instagram, I think. And like I see that they're always doing stuff. And I could have sworn I saw them on the same show recently. And I was like, oh,
You're,
does
"Oh,
that
I
mean
thought you guys could film."
does that mean we're gonna see season 2? Like the fact that they have it, just put it out. Because I think this is rumored, but they said that they were actually falling for each other. And I guess China was like, we can't have that. Because they did have to get pretty close during this whole
Mhm.
and like it's you could tell they had no budget.
Oh.
That's why you could tell it has to be a pretty good story because I still stuck around. Because if there's no
Mhm.
budget for a real life show, I
Listen.
kind of tune out because like bad. Oh, when it's you can get over bad animation, but when it's like I don't want to
Bad
say acting because their
acting.
acting was good.
Yeah.
It's just like you could tell they only had like 3 sets. They only
Mhm.
really had like 2 or 3 outfits. Um, the camera shots were pretty basic. There was no like magical, like, cinematic anything going on there. But I just really like the story. It's really cute. It's about this rich guy, his dad's getting married and he hates his stepmom.
Mhm.
So he's like, I don't want your money. And then he goes to like to like a to go live by himself and his dad is like paying for it, but he's like, I'm gonna stop. So he has to go to like this poor school or something. And he meets the guy he grows up poor, and his mom actually ends up being the other guy's stepmom, but they don't know that till like a few like almost towards the end. He's just like, "Bruh, go away." And then the other one's just like, "Why are you talking to my mom like that?" But like, yeah, leave. Like I hate you too.
Ooh.
And he was like, "How do you know her?" And I was
It's
like,
like,
"That's
"That's
so
my
cool."
mom."
But yeah, I really love that story, and it ends with such a big plot twist, and that's why I'm still sad to this day because it's just like his the poor guy's uh ex-girlfriend. She comes out of nowhere and she's just like she comes to the school she went because his trope was he was really smart, but he always slept in class.
Mhm.
So she came into the class and woke him up, and he was just like, "What?" And she's just there, and then it's like black,
What the heck?
and we'll never know what happens. But that's
That is a
that's one of
topic
my
we'll have to talk
favorite.
about
That's one of
soon.
my favorite BL dramas. Yeah, excuse me, it's actually Chinese, not Thai,
Mhm.
but
Just, like, the different like, depending on where your content's coming from will
mhm.
depend on how censored or how
Oh yeah,
yeah,
those
how
censored
censored
scenes
it's
are hilarious because they have the uncensored version, which essentially is like a few more frames and then they cut it a little later. Cause you're never gonna like, I'm not even out here just like, oh, I wanna see it because I can just look it up on the internet. I don't have to see it in my drama. But it's
Mhm.
just funny the way that they do it because it'll be like, there's like one scene in particular where they're making out on the bed and then you see like one of them grab the headboard and then it just like fades off a little bit and then it's just black and then they come back and they're like a bunch of tissues to the side implying that they had to clean up, I guess. And then that's where we're at and I'm just like, I guess that's one way to do it. And there's a whole car scene that's in the uncensored version
Mhm.
because the rich one, he agrees to like move back home later, so his dad gives him money again, so he buys the poor one a car. And he's like, let's break this car in.
Oh, did Hisu and Dojun do the same thing? Hisu bought himself a car. He was like,
Yes.
"Got a blast, like, we gotta go."
Yes. Yes. But yeah, that's one of my favorite dramas. And
Okay.
I've watched it every time I start to forget about it, I watch it again. So I can be reminded about it.
It's like, to this day, I know what happened. On the topic of yaoi, though, it's really funny because the way or not the way, but when me and Rain first met, that was one of the first topics that we talked with each other about, which
Mhm.
is wild. Oops, which is wild because that's not something that you like meet someone new and then you're
Not at
like,
all.
do you read yaoi? Like, you know,
I honestly, if you don't know me that well, you will never know that I read it.
exactly. I look like the type that I don't. Well, the thing is, like, Rain already kind of knew I have like an interest in like anime stuff because I used to come in to where she worked at
Hmm.
with like my free backpack.
And
And
I
I
will always compliment it, not knowing that it was the same person.
little did we know
Like
that we
every
would
time
meet
I saw her, I was like, "Oh, I like your backpack."
every single time. And
But
then
yeah, usually like I don't tell people. It's not that I'm ashamed. It's just something that doesn't come up very often if I meet you in passing or you're not that close of a friend. Because any
mhm,
of my close friends will tell you all day, every day. Yeah, she reads it like crazy.
it's obsessive almost.
It's kind of a problem.
See, because with me, I never really had a friend that really read it to the extent that I read it. Like I
Hmm.
have a friend that she would really only one friend that like liked yaoi as much as I did, I guess, but she never really got into it. But if I go to her house and I'm like, "You want to see this new yaoi that I watched?" She'll be absolutely down for it and like every second of it. She just doesn't go out of
Hmm.
her way to look for it. But so I'm not particularly like when I meet someone new over like a similar interest, I'm not instantly like, "Do you like yaoi?" Because that's not. I'm not trying to be like because if you had looked at me and you're like, "What's yaoi?" I would have never spoke to you again.
It's that beam where it's just like, all right, peace out, and
Oh,
you just vanish.
and it's
I never
like
saw you. I never saw you at work again. I was just like, what happened to that girl? Did y'all see that?
y'all see how she just came and dipped? Because basically me and Rain. So I used to go to her job, um, very occasionally. I never really went every single day, and then I ended up getting hired at her job, and I started working there. But we didn't like start like really talking until I went on her Facebook and I saw that she had like J Hope, like the J Hope
Yeah.
son in her profile picture. I'm a really big BTS fan, so like I think it was like one night I was just like, all right, I'm gonna take my shot. Let me ask her if she likes BTS. Maybe I can make a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So then I
Because
asked her if she liked BTS.
when I tell you, Sophia didn't say anything at work. I didn't know her name. I didn't know when she started. She was just there.
Doing my
And I was
job.
just like, all right. And like, you knew how to do the job. So I never had to really help you. I wasn't there to train you.
Hmm.
I was just like, all right, she's here. She does the job. She leaves. That's cool.
I'm not that. I'm more sociable than I used to be. I used to like I would go. I like when I used to work at McDonald's, which I'm fine with talking about it, I went 6 months. People didn't know who I was. People didn't know
Mhm.
my name. Nothing. They didn't know me. I didn't speak a word at work. So they're like, "Oh, I thought you quit." I was like, "No, I've been here." And I stayed at that job for 2 years. So out of the
Oh.
like be there for 6 months and people don't know who you are. It wasn't until, like, I think I cut my hair off that people were like, "Oh, I like your hair," and blah, 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 and then people kinda started remembering me, and I
Mhm.
started talking to my coworkers more. At the job that me and Rain had together, I was just having to try to adjust to the job first.
Mhm.
So, and which is what happened, like, I think it was, like, 1 or 2 weeks after I started, um, I got comfortable with the job, so I felt like, "Okay, I can be comfortable talking to people now."
And
And
then
like I
you waited
said
like another week or 2
yeah.
to actually
Say something to her because I have to find something that someone has of similar interest to me to
Yeah.
want to start an actual conversation versus like, "Oh, we're just working together" type of conversation. So, I asked Rain if she liked BTS, and she said no. She
Yeah.
that she liked J that she
I
liked
just really like
J-Hope.
J-Hope.
But then that led us into the topic of talking about K-pop. Um,
Now I do love K-pop. I am a big
yes,
K-pop fan. I'm just
we are
not the
big K-pop
biggest
fans.
BTS fan. I just really like J-Hope. He's so adorable.
Yeah, because we both have anything that we like, we have extensive knowledge of it. So we got into the
Yes.
topic of K-pop groups, specifically girl groups, I think. And
Yeah, I
then
remember talking about Mamamoo
we talked about Mamamoo, Red
and
Velvet,
Red Velvet.
all these groups. And then I was like, okay, she knows K-pop. So I was like, all right, maybe she knows about anime. So I think I started talking about anime.
Yeah.
Um, and then
This was like, by the way, we were supposed to be working. This was like a 2 or 3 hour conversation. We were not working.
we were sweeping the same spot on the ground,
Exactly. We
not doing
stopped
our
working
jobs. We were restocking the back.
because
We
like
were
the manager, like the big boss wasn't there.
yeah.
And it was around Christmas, which our job slowed down a little bit.
Mhm.
So we weren't that busy. This was like a 2 or 3 hour conversation. So it's a little blurry because we did talk about a lot of
We
stuff.
talked about a lot. Like I tell you, when you catch me with my interest and you're saying stuff that like is like not degrading or anything weird about the subject, I'm gonna keep talking
Exactly.
to you about it. So and then if you show interest that like you want to talk about the subject, because if you had just said no, I don't like BTS and
And
walked
then
out,
walked off.
I would have been like, okay, never mind then. I would have, like I
No,
said,
I
never.
hate K-pop. Walks away.
Oh, I would have never. I would have been done. That would have been the end. But then I guess I think we were like getting off the topic of anime or something, or like we were still on the topic. And I was like, I felt like I was pulling some type of TikTok move where I was just like, do you like yaoi?
I feel like I think we were talking about reading manga specifically,
Mhm.
and then it led to something like I think I want to say I said something like, "Oh, I really like the gay stories," because I feel
Maybe.
like that's how I always say it.
Mhm.
Because like I never know if you know what yaoi is or if you know yaoi
Yeah.
and you have like some kind of prejudice against it. So like whenever somebody asks like what kind of like manga do you read, I'm always just like, oh, I like this, and this, and I really like all the gay stories. And I feel like I said something like that,
And then
and
I think I was
your
like,
eyes opened
you're
up.
like, I was like, you like yaoi? I was like, and
The
then you
fact
said
that
something.
you knew the name of it, because like so many people don't even know the name. Like
Exactly.
casual people, I've never
That's like we made a connection. And because I know you said something about like, oh, you read it before bed, and I was like, oh, you just
every night.
sleep yourself to sleep with some yaoi.
It's how I get myself. It's my melatonin.
I
Okay,
mean,
I get my stories. I check my updates. Sometimes I start a story and that'll get me
to where I need to
either
be
that's either gonna put me to sleep and I'll finish it
or
tomorrow,
keep
or
you
I'm gonna
awake.
stay up all night like I did the other night until 6 a.m. to finish one story.
We
It was like a 53 chapter story I randomly found.
when I
I
find the long
like
ones, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna read half of it and then put it down.
I'm just gonna
And
read a
then it's
little
like
bit of
the
it and
birds are
go to sleep.
chirping. I've caught up.
Oh, look, the sun.
But yeah, that's how we found out that we like yaoi. And
Yeah.
I think
I
you're
th-
one of the only people that knew about I could have sworn we started talking about killing stalking.
yeah.
And I was like, she read Killing Stalking? Because at this point,
I
I
was like,
think
yeah, I love Killing
I felt like I
Stalking.
was the only person that had read it after it had kind of popped off.
Yeah.
Because it like popped off and then it died down. Like, because I used to see people cosplaying them and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, that's weird. And then I read it. I was like, okay, this is actually really good. Even though it's not particularly supposed to be a yaoi.
It is, but it isn't. But it
It
is, but it isn't.
it's like,
I'm not here to argue.
yeah, I'm not here to art. Just know Killing Stalking's one of those that I'm like, you had two characters that were guys that did their dirty more than one occasion. And there was like story to it. It's kind of like there's some LGBTQ, even though you might not agree because, like I said, they're Killing Talk is the same thing where like Yeah Shitty Bitch Club where
We can't get into this. We literally we'll have a 3-hour conversation about Killing Stalking.
yes,
And that's no joke.
it is such a psychological
Yeah, yeah, that is.
anything.
I do remember. I think that is how we like. I do
Because I think
remember
you
that
said that
story
you
coming up
colored
into
Yubum.
the conversation. What did you say?
I think you had mentioned that you had drawn Yubum, and I was like,
Yeah, I do draw him a lot. I drew him again. he's he's just a good spunky boy. Okay. But yeah, that's how we and then after that I feel like we were still like cautious of talking about it for a little bit.
mm-hmm.
Cause like we were talking about everything else and then maybe talk about maybe one story that we read or
Yeah.
something. And then one day I think we just had a conversation on your couch for like
Oh,
4 or 5 hours.
ever.
And we are like, okay, so we really both really like this. This isn't like
Because I
you
think we
read
were
it
like
casually,
recommending stuff and everything.
or we'd be like, I was reading this. Oh my god, I was reading that too. Or like, I saw that update. Did you read the updates? Like, we realized that we both had a passion for this. It wasn't just
Yes.
like, because like how you said you met someone who like, if you showed it to them, they'd read it, but they weren't really like looking out for it. I
Mm-hmm.
never really had any kind of. I've barely ever had any kind of anime or like weeb friends
Yes.
or K-pop friends really. I had one friend. She mostly like dojins of like one story.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the name of that anime, but she mostly just like those and like maybe a few others. But she wasn't like at the level that I was. And I was like, all right, whatever. So like I've never really had like a yaoi friend. So that's why like I discovered like, oh, so you have like you're obsessed with this too. Okay,
Yes.
that's cool.
Yes. Because at that
I
point, I
like
think
that.
it was like I was going in on it. Like once you read something like once you read like your first manhwa, and it could be whatever manhwa, that makes you spiral into all these other stories, and
Yeah,
then
because
suddenly you're open
you
into a whole
got
nother
me into
world.
those because I was mostly reading Japanese work,
Mm-hmm.
yaoi specifically, like just anything. I mostly just saw the. Oops, sorry. I mostly just read the Japanese stuff. I didn't even know Korea was doing that. I thought Killing Stalking was like
Yes.
just a random thing that happened. I know it could be, it couldn't be, but I thought Killing Stalking was like the closest to gay any Korean stories had.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you opened my eyes to all of the Korean stories,
Over.
done. Because I've read so many Japanese ones. Like if you see it, I've probably read it. Like I've seen everything that you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But like so like now I have so much more content to read, and like that's what I've been reading recently is like catching up on like a lot of the Korean ones because I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
they existed.
Because it wasn't anything like because obviously like you'd seen like K dramas and stuff. Because
Mm-hmm.
how I really got into manhwas to begin with was like reading webtoons and
I
just
never
like
really read
regular webtoons.
webtoons.
See, and I only got into it because BTS kept talking about them and they made a webtoon.
Oh
So I
yeah,
got the
I
webtoon
remember.
app and then I read that and then it just spiraled from there.
Yeah,
Spiraled.
because I think the one time I tried, it was probably like a really long time ago. Because I think there's a
Hmm.
tag for it now. But when I got on Webtoon, specifically Webtoon, there was no tag for it when I looked up any kind of yaoi or BL or
It was
anything. There was
hard. It
nothing
was hard
there.
because that was one of my biggest things. Like I would look up BL and then it'd be like blue something. I'm like, no, not blue.
Yeah, it's like telling you like straight people stories, but the letter BL is in the title.
Yeah, and you're
I
like,
was
this
like,
is
okay, so
no.
this doesn't exist. There's no stories like that. So like I just in my head, I just never looked it up.
Mm-hmm.
I just only ever really read Yaoi.
Mm-hmm. Because it was
So it's
probably one of
been
the
very
easiest things to find.
refreshing to
It's
read.
been
And I found all the Chinese stories too. So
the
those are
Chinese stories. You have like different ones now. Like you have Indonesia. I think I'm reading one that's
they're
Indonesian.
all over the place now.
Just scattered.
I was reading one. I was trying to like for some reason they all had American names. Like one was named Jimmy, one was Jensen. The closest one was like I think his name was Neji. That was the closest one to like kind of tell me where it was.
Mm-hmm.
They never said where it was. I couldn't tell if it was Korea, Japan, China. I do not know. I don't know where it was.
It's a whole nother world.
But it's beautiful that everyone everywhere is writing because I think I know there is some American ones out,
Yeah,
but
especially on webtoons, like
yeah,
there's some pretty big ones now, like Castle Swimmer. That one's
yeah.
gotten really big, and it's American
Because like you
based.
really weren't seeing these kind of stories before,
No, this is
unless it was
we've
written out
grown.
fan fiction.
Maybe some poorly drawn. Someone drew their own.
And like God bless
Dojin.
them, they tried, but it just don't
I
hit the
appreciate
same.
it because it helped my imagination envision what I wanted to see.
Like I'm never gonna shit on somebody's art, but there is.
We were there. We were there.
Have
We
I read
probably
it?
done it.
Yes.
It's like I feel like we think that we're like old because I know before we got into it, I couldn't even imagine what people back in the day
Oh,
used
there
to
was
go
nothing.
through.
Have you ever heard like a person older than you tell you how they used to watch anime?
Oh my god.
How they used to have to go out of their way and like find tapes that
Oh,
someone at home dubbed or put subs on. I could never fathom because when I got into anime was already pretty mainstream. It was
yeah.
already on Netflix. It was already on
See,
like Toonami. We had Toonami growing up.
Toonami. See, Toonami was the saving grace, but if you wanted to watch anything else that was kind of outside of that realm, we did have to go through that like YouTube period where you would watch it in like
Oh yeah, in
this small
parts.
little
Okay,
box and
that was the
parts.
beginning of my anime obsession because it
um,
was
the
parts. I did
pitched voices.
God, I remember I fully watched Future Diary
Oh no.
in parts with the voices pitched up.
No.
It wasn't till for some reason the last episode was essentially like the real show. Like somebody actually put up the last episode. And
Oh,
I was like, that's not their voices.
I'm
And it's not in parts. And it's not in a tiny box off to the side of the screen.
See, because I read Future Diary as the manga before it even got an anime, and then I saw that it was getting an anime, but I was still like, at that time, there was no way for me to watch it coming out weekly. No way. So I didn't even watch that until I think I had like,
Sorry,
you
they were
had
loud.
those sweet little sites
Yeah.
that you can watch stuff
Those
on
golden nuggets. Even if you didn't know the sites, it was pretty easy to find
later
around
on.
later on. Because now it's on what? Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime,
It has
whatever.
to be on one of those. It has to be on one of those. But back in the day when you had to watch stuff on YouTube, you were either gonna get the
Whew.
full episode, everything, or you were gonna get parts, little box.
Little box, pitched up voices. Oh, I don't know what's worse, pitched up or pitched down. I think
Pitched
pitched
down
up
for
was
me
worse.
because the girls would sound absurd.
Yeah, but I hated when the guys would sound absurd pitched up. Cause especially when it's like you can tell this is like a gigantic, like muscular man, and his voice should be like this. And it sounds
It's
like
like
this.
this.
You can't get over it. You just want to laugh the whole time. You can't take that man seriously. But
Exactly. And
yes.
it's just like it
Yeah.
makes you think. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this episode for this week. So really quick, we're gonna put in our plugs. So make sure to follow us on our social media platforms, which is of right now we have TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube, which are all under BL TeaTime.
And we also have a Patreon. If you want to be a part of that, you can sign up and join one of our tiers. You can get early access to episodes, you can get bloopers, and you can be a part of our Discord where we have conversations about more BL stuff.
It never ends. It never
It never
ends.
ends.
And then Yeah, make sure to just subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on notifications so you can be notified when we upload our podcast episodes,
Mhm.
and then
And comment below.
comment below. And then if a little bit of interaction here, if you guys, since this whole topic was about how we came to like yaoi and stuff, if you want to leave in the comments your stories, like how did you get into yaoi, we'd love
Mhm.
to read them.
I love
And
it's
then
always a funny story.
it's always a funny story because, like we said, it's not a normal
You don't just find Yowie. Yowie finds you.
yaoi finds you. And then if you also have any what is it? Any stories, dramas, mangas, animes that you want to recommend us to watch and look into, and then in future episodes we can talk about it. We definitely
Mhm.
can. And as of right now, next week's episode is looking like talking about our different. Oh,
Next week's episode, we're thinking about talking. Nope. In next week's episode, we're probably going to be talking about all the different types of yaoi, such as shonen ao, bara, BL specifically. I don't like the way I said that. Hold on, one more time. In our next week's episode, we're going to be talking about all the different types of BL, like yaoi, bara, shonen
Shonen
ao,
I.
shonen ai, all that jazz, like BL dramas, all that. So if you want to tune into that, just I still don't like the way I said that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to say it? You want me to say it? I'll say it.
Let's
Okay.
okay. We got this.
Next week, we're going to be talking about all different types of BL. So we're going to be talking about the difference between yaoi, BL, shonen ai, and Thai dramas, Chinese dramas, all the different types of stuff that's out there. That's under the hashtag BL. So if you want to listen to that, just tune in next week.
Tune in next week, definitely. So thank you so much for watching our first episode of BL TeaTime, and hopefully we'll be seeing you guys in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Bye.